The Washington Commanders 2025 NFL Draft is in the books, and we've got your Ref the District reaction right here. Let's go. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner over there, and we've got your reaction to the 2025 NFL Draft for the Washington Commanders. They made 5 selections, no trades. Although we might have wanted that. If that's something you would have wanted, make sure you hit that comment section below. Make sure you hit that like button as well. Subscribe to the channel, share the content, and then also join us on Wednesdays for our flagship program live 7:30 Eastern right here on YouTube and Facebook. We appreciate you joining us for this particular episode. Exciting times in DC. We're going to have a separate video for you to watch for the DC announcement. Stay tuned for that as well. Stoner, let's get right into the draft here. First round, pick 29, Josh Conerly Jr., offensive tackle. In the second round, with pick 61, they took cornerback Trey Amos. Wide receiver Jaylin Lane was the pick at 128. Kain Medrano in the 6th round with their pick there, and finishing it out is Jacory Croskey-Merritt in the 7th round, running back there, linebacker for Kain Medrano. That's the full thing. Only the 5 picks. I mentioned some of us were team trade back. Where did you stand on that, and were you happy with Washington's draft overall?
Yeah, I think all of us really would have liked to seen them drop back, maybe get a couple of extra picks. But as Adam Peters stated when he talked about it in his press conference, there was just a couple of guys there in the 1st and 2nd round, which is where the only place that you can actually trade back and get some value. They just had guys there that they had to have and that they couldn't see the value in trading back and getting more picks. The quantity was not worth the quality of the picks that were there. So I totally understand in terms of trading back. But I think overall, Nathan, I sort of look at this entire draft, and while they only had 5 picks, one way to look at it is you can say, hey, look, they used some of those other draft picks, that draft capital, in the offseason to trade for veterans. So everybody's probably seen the list of what this draft looked like. You had your 1st rounder, you had your 2nd rounder, and then your 3rd rounder is Marshon Lattimore. And then your other 3rd rounder is Laremy Tunsil. And then you had your 4th rounder, and then your 5th rounder was Deebo Samuel. So it's okay to kind of look at it that way. And if you do, I don't have any problem with that. But just kind of looking at the 5 guys that they drafted, and I think it's a little light in terms of the number of guys. I totally get it, though. I would probably grade overall. I think I would give this draft probably a B. Maybe even teetering on a B-, just simply because, like I said, the number of draft picks, when you only got 5 guys and you've really got maybe 2 guys who are going to make an impact on your every down players on offense or defense. So in that sense, you can't look at it as being such a great, but we'll look at each individual pick here going forward, though.
Yeah, I think you're a little too hard on them when it comes to only having 5 picks. I think that you have to look at and value who they took.
Okay.
And I like the people that they took. I like the players that they took. I'm going to rate this as a B+.
Okay.
And really only giving it not an A because one of the things that I thought that they could have done, and there were several names out there at the times that they were picking for edge rushers that were pretty exciting. Now it seems to me that they're going to resolve that in free agency, and we'll probably see a couple names come there. That is a Wednesday discussion. Today is strictly about the draft. And I'm telling you, up and down the board, I like the guys that they picked. I think that the first 2 rounds were excellent value. I like the wide receiver that they got, and then they took a couple positions in the later rounds, and they took guys who I think have the potential to make an impact, even if that impact is just special teams. And they specifically mentioned, by the way, the 4th round pick as a special teams player as well. but I do think the overall concept of the draft, they're a bunch of rascals. Okay, some relative athletic score guys. These we were Commanders rated as the top team when it came to RAS value, and
That's right.
and even in the next generation stats for that, they ranked in the top 5. So they're grabbing athletes.
Absolutely.
And not just athletes, but guys who I think can play in the NFL. So it'll be exciting to see how they get coached up, where they fit. Second draft for Adam Peters, thinks that it was solid. Let's get into the picks. Now, the first one, Stoner, I know that you have the biggest issue with.
Sure.
And that is Josh Conerly Jr. with the 29th pick. This is where Adam Peters said he was fielding a lot of phone calls, but this guy was just too good to pass up. Yeah. We thought they were going to go defense with this pick. Sure. There were still names like Mike Green out there for them to take as far as impact edge rushers. They completely, and I called this on Wednesday.
You did.
I called it. I said the guy that they're going to take in the first round is going to be somebody we're not talking about.
And you're right.
And even in our top 5, Stoner, Josh Conerly didn't make our top 5 names to talk about. And that's a foul on us, because looking back at it, he should have been in the top 5.
Well, I think that's fair. He was actually 6th on our board in terms of offensive linemen, but we also looked at guards too.
Sure.
So we looked at Tyler Booker, who was drafted ahead of him, and all the guys that we looked at, other than Josh Simmons, who was drafted like 2 picks after him, all of them were picked ahead of him. Tyler Booker, Will Campbell, Armand Membo, Kelvin Banks, all those guys were drafted ahead of him. So he was kind of right on that cusp of where we were looking. But yeah, you mentioned it, Nathan. Maybe I did have a little bit of problem with this pick. Let me be perfectly clear, though, Nathan. I didn't have a problem with the player. And we're going to break down the player, Josh Conerly, here in a minute. I had a problem with the position that they picked. And look, that's who I am as somebody who evaluates this team. And we're called Ref the District because we keep an eye on DC sports and we hold them accountable. And that's just the way I feel about drafting. I'm a draft for need guy. Adam Peters and his team, not draft for needs guys. We know that for sure. Yeah. It doesn't matter who's left on their board, what position they play, they're taking that guy. And
which I love. Love.
That's you, right? You're the BPA guy, and so they are as well. And look, who am I to argue with them? I'm just sitting here at my computer talking about whether or not I like their pick. They're the ones that are actually making millions of dollars a year, running an organization and running a roster. So I get that. But it's just not something that I would have done in that position. Again, it's not the player. I really like Josh Conerly. I just don't think that they made the right decision in terms of taking an offensive lineman, because, and I'll give you good justification. I'm just not going to sit here and say I didn't like it and not have any particular reason. I'll give you specifics to those reasons. And one of them is, I defy anybody who is watching this or listening to this now to go out there in the world and find one mock draft that had Josh Conerly mocked to the Commanders at 29. And you're not going to find one. And that doesn't make all of us who did mock drafts right and Adam Peters wrong. That's not what I'm saying. He obviously knows way more about football than any of us do. But it just didn't make logical sense for Washington to take an offensive lineman at pick 29, because that was not a position that they were looking to upgrade. When you looked at all the positions, the position groups on this team, and what they needed to upgrade, and you would say all these needed to be upgraded before offensive linemen: edge, corner, safety, wide receiver, running back, all of that. So that needed to be addressed first, to me, and it wasn't addressed with this pick in the first round.
Sure.
Adam Peters explained it. I get it. He said there wasn't a guy at 29 who was more valuable than Josh Conerly. And I understand his explanation, and I accept his explanation. It's just not something that I would have done. And I'm not going to sit here and just blow smoke up the
Yeah.
Commanders' butt and say they're great and they did everything right. I'm going to give an honest feedback.
I think that's fair. And there's merit in what you're talking about and the fact that Josh Conerly should be an improvement over in the offensive line, right?
Sure.
But you're taking an offensive line that was mid, last year, most metrics, okay, and you're making an improvement to that. Your argument is the defense was poor, and you need to make the jumping up from the what were we like the 20th best defense, 18th, I think, going into the playoffs, right?
Yeah, that's right.
By certain metrics, going from taking a guy who would improve that 18th ranking
Right.
to maybe even the 13th best ranking would
Sure.
be a bigger jump than taking a tackle who will take your guys from the 13th ranking to maybe the 10th ranking, right? So the level of improvement by taking an edge rusher there would have been more valuable to you.
Yeah.
I think that has merit, Stoner. My counterpoint is, who's the most valuable person on this roster?
Well, your quarterback, yes, of course.
Okay. And wouldn't improving the offensive line help your most important asset on the team?
There's not a human on earth that does not agree with your statement, Nathan, that you can never go wrong drafting more and more offensive linemen for your team to protect your most valuable asset. That will always be true. Nobody has said it more than the two of us on this show, that the game is won and lost in the trenches. We all understand that, and we all agree with that concept. But this is not a free market. The NFL is not a free market. You can't go out and just buy whatever offensive line you want from the college ranks and from the pro ranks. There are systems and checks and balances and all that in place to prevent you from being able to do that. This is not the Major League Baseball where you're the Los Angeles Dodgers and you can just buy every foreign player and every local and just put together a super team year in and year out without a salary cap and without sort of the restrictions that they do in the NFL. You can't do that here. You have the restrictions, and so you have certain assets that are available to you to be able to put that team together. And so you have to figure out what assets are most valuable all around when you got a 53-man roster and you got 22 starters and all of that. And so, yeah, it's great to get as many offensive linemen as you can. But you were doing that to the detriment in place of the defense, which was the biggest need going into the offseason. You didn't address it in free agency, and you didn't address it in the draft, and that is the edge position. You let your best edge go in Dante Fowler because he wasn't good enough.
Most productive, maybe not best, but most productive. Sure.
Most productive. You let him go because he wasn't good enough against the run. And I was totally on board with that. I did not want him back. And you can still address it later, as you said earlier, that they can still address it. There's still some names out there. But you didn't address it this entire offseason except for a bunch of Jags and Ys and guys like that. So that's the problem I have with it. I don't have a problem in getting as many offensive linemen as you possibly can to protect your most valuable asset, but you're doing it at the detriment of your biggest need. Still your biggest need after free agency and after the draft. It's still your biggest need. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer about it because I think this guy is going to be a player, but I just didn't like that they went offensive lineman with the 29th pick.
Yeah, let's actually focus more on the player right now. Josh Conerly, absolutely fantastic year. Some said that if he would have stayed in college one more year, next year he would be looked at as a top 10, possibly top 5 pick.
Yep.
This is a guy who gave up only 2 sacks his entire college career.
That's
and
right.
He played against some of the guys taken much higher than him. So from Hale Maryland on Twitter for this one, Josh Conerly Jr. competed against Abdul Carter, competed against JT Tuamolaau, Jack Sawyer, Aladeo from UCLA, Ahmed Hassanin, Boise State, and Josiah Stewart in Michigan.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
The best pass rushers. That was just this past year, only gave up 1 sack.
Yeah. Oh.
1 sack the year before. 2 sacks in a 3-year career. He's athletic. He has favorable comps to one Trent Williams.
Sure.
Okay. He can get bullied against the bull rush right now, but he's 21.
Yep.
Can build up that strength.
Yep.
And there's been other elite tackles who might struggle against the bull rush early in their careers that become just absolute studs.
Yeah.
He is going to be an improvement on that line. And while it's not somebody from the Commanders organization, you do have a legendary coach who did win a championship at Michigan, who talked about how the offensive line is the most important position group in the NFL, because with good offensive line play, you improve your quarterback play. With good offensive line play, you improve your running game. With good offensive line play, you'll improve your passing game. And with that, I think that's great, because they didn't go running back until later. And they have a young quarterback who's an absolute stud. And what I love about Jaden Daniels is, even though he's special with his running ability, he is special in the pocket. He will be able to pick teams apart. And how great will it be when you're facing the defensive ends and defensive tackles from the NFC East twice a year? They loaded up. Abdul Carter is a guy we're going to see 2 times a year.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have Tunsil on one side, Conerly on the other, Cosme when he's healthy at right guard. And then left guard, you're going to have a battle between Allegretti and Coleman. Coleman is a guy who played and great for a rookie. He was the 3rd best rookie last year that had multiple tackles taken in the first round, but he was the 3rd best rookie.
Well, he played so well that they traded for his replacement at left tackle and drafted for his replacement at right tackle.
I'm not saying he's not I'm not saying it was improvement, but I'm saying compared to the rookies that were drafted, that was a guy who was taken much later but played the 3rd best than a bunch of people taken in the first, right? And so now they're going to take that athleticism and they're going to either have him as a backup or move him inside. And so I think Biadasz might be the lowest drafted, round drafted on that offensive line. You'll have, if Coleman takes the place of Allegretti, you'll have a 1st rounder at your left tackle, a 3rd rounder as your left guard, a 4th rounder with Biadasz as your center, a 2nd rounder with Sam Cosme at right guard, and a 1st rounder in your right tackle. A right tackle, by the way, who could, after Tunsil moves on or retires, take over that position. That's his NFL track right now.
Yeah. I mean, Nathan, you're getting me excited about this guy, and you're giving us quite a bit of positives. And there is a lot to really like about this guy. I don't have a lot of negative to say about him. I mean, he's 6'5". He's 315 pounds. He ran a 5.05 40-yard dash, which is like in the top 90%.
Yeah. A 1-7 split for the 10 yards on that one.
That's amazing. And all he's done from the time he started playing football is developed and got better and better and better. Started as a running back in high school before he transitioned to offensive line. And then when he was the highest rated offensive lineman coming out of high school. And he could have gone to absolutely any school he wanted to. He went to Oregon, and he played as a freshman, not a lot, but he was the 6th offensive lineman. So he got some snaps in there, and then he just kept developing. And as a sophomore, he gave up 1 sack. And as a junior last year, gave up 1 sack, 9 total pressures in like 15 games. There's a lot to like about him. He's got the footwork. He's fluid. He's going to get stronger, as you said. I mean, he's only 21 years old, so he's going to continue to get better. And I think the biggest thing is he definitely would have been a top 5 pick, not a top 5 offensive lineman, a top 5 pick if he had stayed in school for another year, because he would have got stronger. He would have got better. He would have developed even more. So there's a ton to really like about Josh Conerly. I would just caution to lower your expectations. He was the 29th pick. He was the 5th offensive lineman taken. The 29th pick, that's a crapshoot. I'm not saying that he'll be bad or he'll be good, but once you start getting down there in that range, it's not all roses and rose petals and flowers and all that. So just lower your expectations on the kid, allow him to develop, and then hopefully, like you said, by the time Laremy Tunsil moves on, that this is your starting left tackle for 7-8 more years.
Yeah, even if he sticks out of the right, as long as he's one of the top tackles out there, I think we'll be pretty impressed. You mentioned that 29th pick. 25% of the 29th picks have been given a 5th-year option. Is that the correct stat?
In the 5th-year option era, then yes, there have been 12 guys who have had the option to get the 5th-year option, and only 3 of them actually got the option. And of those, one of them is Cole Strange this year. So we don't know what his future holds. But of all those other guys who have had the opportunity to play at least 4 years with one team, 2 guys. 2 guys have played at least 4 years with one team. And all the rest have either moved on. Some of them are out of the league. We're only talking about 12 years worth of data. So it just doesn't, I mean, one, you get the top level, and you've got a David Njoku, who's a franchise tight end in Cleveland, worked out amazing, and he's a stud. And then you've got another guy, and I forget the guy's name, but he was an offensive tackle out of Georgia who was drafted number 29, and he played a total of 4 snaps in the NFL, which is the least amount of snaps since the early 60s.
Yeah, we did,
you know, who knows?
Yeah, we did a top 100 kind of rack and stack last year, and it showed that really outside those first 15 picks, it gets really, really dicey.
Really dicey.
And top 100 is a misnomer. Really, your first 50 picks are usually pretty strong. And then it tails. The cliff is a drop off after that. But you never know what you're going to get. He could be a Pro Bowler. He could be a guy who's out of the league. But right now, I think there's a lot of excitement on what his potential is and how he can help improve the line. We'll talk about how he might replace some people on Wednesday. Make sure you check us out, 7:30 Eastern, live right here on YouTube. But we're going to move to a player that you love and a position that you said that they needed, which I find interesting because I really felt the top 4 cornerbacks were fairly decent and to some degree strong, assuming Marshon Lattimore is healthy and playing at the level of which he has when healthy in his career. He's an obvious CB1. You got Mikey Sanristil, who played great on the outside, drafted to be inside, could play either position. You got Jonathan Jones, who's an aging vet, who I think still plays at a good level, at an NFL level. And you got Iggy, who was your 4th cornerback, who plays well in the slot, a former first rounder himself, who I feel like, again, plays at an NFL level. So this is a position I didn't think necessarily needed to be addressed, especially this high, but it was too hard to pass up on a guy like Trey Amos, man. Amos, pick 61 rounds, the 2nd round, a guy who a lot of people were saying was a first round talent and a guy that you absolutely love.
Yeah, I love him and I love the position. I'm not as sold on this cornerback room as you are. I'm not fully sold on Marshon Lattimore yet, but we got to give him, as everybody says, give him a full offseason to heal and give him a full offseason to learn the system, and he'll come back and be his former self. I hope that's the case. Definitely not sold on Jonathan Jones. I like him, but I don't think he's on a 1-year deal for a reason. But the one thing I will do when it comes to free agents, I will give Adam Peters every benefit of the doubt. He has my 100% trust on free agents, because last year he hit on 99% of his free agents, but the only one he missed was a corner, and that was Michael Davis, who was counted on to be the 4th corner and was really not good. But so that's why I was kind of high on bringing in a corner. Adam Peters said that they actually considered him at pick 29 and couldn't believe he was still there when it came to 61. Best player available. That's what he does. That's what he did with this pick. Love Trey Amos. 6'1", 195, runs a 4.4, 340. He is the epitome of a press coverage corner, and that's what Joe Witt likes to do. So he's going to fit in really well. He's tall. He's lanky. He's got the longer arms, instinctive, tough, all that good stuff, and very explosive. So this is a guy that I think fits well into what they do well or what they're trying to do well on defense. And I think he's going to be a starter day one. I don't think Jonathan Jones is going to be your starter outside. He can play outside and inside, but I think they want him outside because of that press man coverage that he can play so well. So I think it's going to be him, Sanders Still, and Lattimore as your 3 starting corners with Noah I and Jones as your backups. And that's pretty good depth, if you ask me.
I like that 1 through 5. Absolutely. And I mean, think about that 1 through 5 compared to 2 years ago, where it was Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St. Juste, Emmanuel Forbes, Christian Holmes, Caillou Blue Kelly, and Tariq Castro Fields. That
Can
was
you believe that?
Yeah, it was just an incredible improvement from 1 year to the next. They got a couple other prospects there, an undrafted free agent from the HBCU who also looks really good. But don't fall in love with those depth guys, because one through 5, the guys who are going to see, the actual snaps are good. Are I know you said you weren't sold without this pick on 1 through 4, but when Jonathan Jones and Igbenogany are your 4th and 5th, you got to be pretty happy. Like that's exactly right. That is really good. That is really good depth at that position. And like you mentioned, they want to play man. They didn't play man as much as they wanted to last year. Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn really like that man defense, but they didn't have the players for it. And now you're going to have the players for this. And if those cornerbacks can stay sticky, then you're going to have a better pass rush. That pass rush is going to get there. You're going to see some coverage sacks happening, which is going to be great. And trusting those corners to be with their player and, not get beat, or Benjamin St. Juste, just turn your head around and do that. Right. And so I think this is a great pickup for the defense. I think it's going to help the defense all the way around. And I like that Mikey gets to play inside. You mentioned, though, some position flex with this. And I think that's great as well, is going to be, if you go into man, not having to worry about if his guy goes to kind of the slot, you got 1, 2, and 3 locked down, which is great.
Yeah, so when the offense is trying to present matchup problems to the coverage unit, well, hopefully you don't have that guy who is vulnerable out there like you had last year with St. Juste or even Forbes when he was playing before he got let go. So the position flex helps a lot, and I don't think they're going to go into camp saying, Trey Amos, you're our outside guy, Sanders Still's inside. They're going to kind of get a feel for it as camp goes along, and so you could see them, both of them playing both until they figure it out, or even so on right on into the season. Look, if Trey Amos can't handle A.J. Brown on a regular basis, Sanders still can. Now, he's not going to shut him down, but he's done it. He's played against him, and so he's at least going to have that experience and understand how to play him if Trey Amos is not ready for the big time yet.
Moving on, no 3rd-round pick. Moving to day 3 already for Washington. And they take wide receiver Jaylin Lane with pick 128 in the 4th round. This is a guy who I think flying underneath the radar right now with kind of what people are talking about. People love, or people are really engaged in that 1st-round pick. They love the 2nd-round pick. And they're talking about the 6th and 7th round pick a little bit more than this guy, but do not underestimate Jaylin Lane from Virginia Tech, who had a 9.56 RAS. He's got elite speed, 4.34, 40-yard dash there. He's got great vertical broad. So the shuttle and the 3-cone are there. This guy is a burner in the likes of Tyreek Hill. Don't get excited. It's a 4th round pick, but a lot of those measurables kind of match up there. And Adam Peters specifically likes him as a punt returner, mentioned in the phone call as far as that. So you're getting an upgrade in special teams to boot.
Yeah, I like the kid. 5'10", 191, runs a 4.34 and a 1.5 10-yard split. I mean, that is explosive. That's getting off the line. The guy can't run a route for anything. That's his problem.
Yeah.
That's why he wasn't
not a polished route runner. Yeah.
Right. He's not great. And of course, that can be learned as you go along. But look, as a punt returner and as a kick returner, here's ball, go that way. And that's what he can do really, really well. Or if you line him up on offense, there's the goal line, head for it. There's the corner, there's the pylon. Go towards that pylon, and Jaylin's going to throw it to you. Separate from the guy, and he'll get it to you. That's what he can bring to you right now. He can hopefully develop into being a bit of a better receiver, and every down receiver. We'll kind of see how that goes. But he has elite speed. A 4.34 and a 1.5 split and at 10 yards. That's the elite of the elite. So that's what he's going to bring to you, is a ton of speed.
Yeah, and think about him in the screen game. Think about him in the jet sweep game. Think about him even just lining up as a running back and being able to use that speed. You have now, Cliff Kingsbury, a bunch of tools on offense that are multifaceted, right? Deebo Samuel's another weapon. Now you got the speed with Jaylin here, and I like that they got some options for mismatches. Now, this wide receiver room went from only 3 names at the beginning of free agency, or 2 names, sorry. Well, no, 3, because we traded early for Deebo Samuel. So, it was Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey. Then you get Deebo Samuel. Then you got Gallup. Now you got Jaylin Lane here, and a couple other names starting to fill in. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. Where do last year's 3rd round pick and this year's 4th round pick survive and live? Luke McCaffrey did a great job on kick returns. Is he going to maintain that role with now a guy who's got some serious speed and experience on the return game?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I think we'll probably get more in depth on that on Wednesday's show. But yeah, it does make you look at last year's 3rd rounder, Luke McCaffrey, the 100th pick. I believe that's where he was picked at, which is higher than what Jaylin Lane was picked at. It does kind of make you say, I wonder how that works either in his favor or against him. So we'll talk more about that. But it is interesting how they did draft a wide receiver not high, where he's going to be wide receiver 3, but sort of right in the middle there, where he brings something, but I don't think at this point he brings sort of wide receiver competition just yet.
Sure. And missing one trait that I know a lot of our viewers were wanting. He is not a tall guy.
No.
He is lacking the height. Washington remaining on the Smurfs 2.0, kind of working that facet there. Of course, Luke McCaffrey, the oddball out of that one at 6'2", but the speed is phenomenal. I more favor route running than I do speed, but I do like that this is a guy who can create separation with his speed, even if it's not the route running separation, which I think translates better to the NFL, because there's a lot of 4.34 guys in the NFL.
Sure.
Right. And so you need to be able to have polished route running. But I like where Jaylin Lane can fit in this team right now as a returner, something that has been desperately missing from special teams. Moving to the next pick, another possible special teamers, especially early on, it's Kain Medrano, linebacker, in the 6th round, picks in the 200 range here now. So guys, you're not really looking at being everyday starters, but this is a guy who I feel fans are going to kind of cling to because he's got some great athletic ability to him. 4.46 40 at the NFL Combine. It's a moving elite speed.
Yep.
On that one. And then he also has some explosiveness to him with a high vertical score and a high broad jump score as well.
Yep.
Where do you stand on the linebacker from UCLA?
I mean, 4.46 at 222 pounds. That's getting down there pretty darn quick. And the 9.83 RAS score. I mean, all of these guys have elite RAS scores as well. A 1.52 10-yard split. I like looking at those 10-yard splits because that shows me how explosive they are getting off the ball. I'm not in love with him. I mean, he fits a certain need and he will fit as a good depth piece. It's a 6th round. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for special teams guys. He reminds me, or he looks to me to be sort of a Nick Bellore replacement as Nick Bellore gets up there in ages. The guy who is flying down, the first one down on special teams, the guy in that special team spot that is expected to be the first one down there and to make the tackle. That's what he can bring to the team. He can fill in maybe on the edge at times and in the linebacker position, but don't look for him to be an every down guy, even kind of in the future. He's future in the NFL is going to be on special teams.
Yeah, I do like that he's got, if forced into action, I think this is a guy who does fit what the defense wants to do. You don't want to see him playing anytime soon. Let him sit behind some much more, seasoned players before he gets there. But this is a guy who the linebacker coach wanted, Norton. Our linebacker coach wanted him, has some experience with him. And in fact, the word is Medrano actually called up Norton 10 picks to go and say, hey, I'm still here. Come get me. And that's exactly what they did. And so I like that at this stage in the 6th round, this is where you're getting those athletic prospects.
That's right.
That you're hoping you can mold into talented players. We talk a lot about this, Stoner, when it comes to if you have 2 guys who run 100-yard dash, right, 100-meter dash at the same speed, but one's got perfect form and the other one is all sloppy. You take the sloppy guy because if you can get him to start having perfect form, he's going to be lights out, right?
Yeah.
And so taking those safe picks in the 6th and 7th rounds don't do you any favors. Take the sloppy guy and hope that you can mold something out of him because he's just a superior athlete, and that is what Medrano brings.
And one other thing on Medrano, he does have a little bit of trouble tackling guys. To kind of sum up what he brings, he will get to the ball carrier faster than most guys. He may not bring the ball carrier down, but he will get there before anyone else does. And he's got to work on that, especially when you get to the NFL, when you've got some ultra athletes there.
Yeah, size is going to be one of those things that I think is also a little bit of a concern, and that's part reason why he has a trouble bringing him down. But if he can just stop momentum long enough for the team to group tackle, saw that a lot at this last season. I think that's something that Joe Witt Jr. really focuses on is getting to the ball. And if he can get to the ball, again, if forced in action, he is linebacker 4 at best right now.
Yeah.
And at best.
I mean, Nick Bellore is probably linebacker 4 right now, right? Yeah. And so he's kind of in that mold. He's probably a practice squatter for now. And if you need him on for special teams, and you bring him up.
Sure. And so even if he's linebacker 4 at most, this is a team that really likes a 2 linebacker set. So you're not going to see a lot of him unless things have gone terribly, terribly wrong.
That's right.
Now, a guy you might see some of is the 7th round pick, running back Jacory Croskey-Merritt, who is stealing the show for a lot of people. I hear a lot more about this 7th round pick than I do pretty much any other pick right now, Stoner. I don't know, it's because it was the last pick taken, but a lot of people really loving this running back. They wanted a running back. They wanted one early. They get one in the 7th round. What do you make of this kid out of multiple schools, but ended up out of Arizona, even if he only played one game.
Yeah, and there's a lot to like about him, but I think the biggest thing that people are excited about is, look, he's coming into a vulnerable room, which is that running back room. When you have a guy like Brian Robinson Jr., who is not necessarily lights out, and you have Eckler, who is hurt a lot, and you've got Rodriguez and McNichols and guys who are just not special, right? And they're all on the last year of their deal. So he's coming into a really good situation for him. And he proved himself, and he definitely dropped further than what a lot of people expected him to, because they didn't see him his senior year. But there's a couple of things that I really liked about him. First of all, again, his RAS score is in the elite area. He's fast. He's 5'11", 208 pounds. He runs a 4.4, 540. He's got breakaway speed. He's got strength, all of that. He's got great balance. Here's what I really liked, and this has really nothing to do with him as a football player. But he was declared ineligible for the entire year after one game. And it was a weird situation. I don't know if you read up on it, but it was like swapping jerseys and saying you are somebody you're not. I don't know.
He went to an HBCU. They had his jersey number. Apparently it was that same number is worn by another player. So even though he was redshirt freshman, they ended up counting that against him in the books. The NCAA ended up holding against him. So then he transfers from the HBCU to New Mexico State, where he has New Mexico and New Mexico, right? Yeah. He plays there. He has some really good years, transfers to Arizona.
Yeah.
NCAA comes out and says, no, you've burnt through your eligibility.
Yeah.
So he gets one game in Arizona, takes 13 carries for over 100 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, right.
And then has to sit out the rest of the year.
And all he did in his last year at New Mexico was have almost 1,200 yards and double-digit touchdowns, and he was fantastic. So he can do it on the field, but having been ineligible for an entire year, knowing he wasn't going to play and he was going to go into the draft because he has no more college eligibility, he went to every practice. He went to every meeting with the running backs, every offensive meeting. He still was a part of that team, even though he was not eligible to play. That tells you something about his character and about his love of football. And that's how you earn a commander's tag, is by being all about football and all about those brothers that are lining up alongside you. Even if you can't go out there on Saturday and play, that you are still going to be there and support them and learn and work out and all of that stuff as a teammate. That to me says a lot about the kid. So he's got that. So he's got this, right? He's got right here. He's got the physical talent, and it's going into a vulnerable room in the running backs room where he has a chance to do something. He has a chance to make the team, and he has a chance to get some carries this season, depending on what happens with those top two guys. They didn't draft anybody as a replacement. Like if they had taken Travion Henderson at some point, then you might not see Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler on this team this year, but they didn't. So he's not going to supplant anybody in that way, but he might be taking carries away from those RB3s or RB4s, or even some as an injury replacement as the year goes on. I really like this guy. He's not a difference maker, though. Let's not get crazy, but he is a solid NFL running back, and he has a chance to make this team.
Yeah, we'll talk more about where he kind of fits in, and as far as the running back room, that'll be on Wednesday. Make sure you join us live, 7:30 Eastern. The kid is special. You mentioned Travion Henderson, a guy that we loved, right? And we would be pretty happy with if they ended up taking him. Maybe not at 29, but at 61, that was a guy that we were just kind of like, oh, that guy would be pretty good, right? RAS score difference, by the way, between these two, an 8.29 to an 8.87. Some better splits at 10 and 20 yards for Croskey-Merritt than Henderson. So even though the top speed, the 40-yard dash, would go towards Travion Henderson, the initial burst, those 10 and 20-yard splits, goes to Croskey-Merritt.
Yeah.
And he does have some exciting tape on him. He did go to the postseason draft games, and he won some accolades there, won over his teammates there with his ability and personality. And I think those are big reasons why he was drafted. I am excited about him because I think late running backs, you can find gems. They have to do something special. And you said that he's not special. He's not really a difference maker. And I'm not going to try to argue that point. But one of the things he does really well is he is that one cut guy. And those guys can end up being very, very good in the NFL. We've seen a lot of that with the old Shanahan offenses. All you have to do is make sure you make that one cut, make the right decision to find that cut into the hole, and you're getting like 6-7 yards of carry.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have quite the breakaway speed that we were kind of looking for and wanting, but the one cut ability that he has, the deceleration, as some people have noted, fantastic. And somebody I do think fans will fall in love with, maybe even the early district diamond for the preseason. We'll be talking more about that after OTAs, of course. But that was your final pick for the Washington Commanders in this draft. Only 5 players: Josh Conerly Jr., Trey Amos, Jaylin Lane, Kain Medrano, and Jacory Croskey-Merritt. The 5 picks for the Washington Commanders. I'm giving them a B+. Stoner, you're looking like a B minus.
I was kind of at a B-, but I think all that love that you talked about Josh Conerly Jr. at the opening, I'll give him a solid B for this draft. It's just not enough picks for me.
All right. Well, let us know where you rate them in the comment section. Make sure while you're down there, you hit that like button for us. Sub to the channel, share it so you can get other people's opinions, and then join us on Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern, as we will talk about this and all more Commanders information as well. That was our draft review. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. And until next time.
Washington this year, #1 RAS score in the NFL, and also last year. They got athletes, Nathan.
Be a fan.